I was cast aside, like a forgotten object in a corner. When the will was read, the silence in the room cut deeper than any words. She inherited everything, they said, but the truth is, I was the one who truly inherited his love. For years, I was by his side, a silent shadow, always present in the most difficult moments. I remember the smell of fresh coffee on Sunday mornings. As he prepared for church, he called me daughter, and I responded with a smile, even when no one else seemed to notice my dedication. I was invisible, but my love for him was what kept everything standing, but nothing prepared me for what would happen on the day he passed away. Deep down, I knew that moment would come, but the pain of his absence was a weight I was not ready to carry. When the news arrived, the house was silent. Everyone was sad, but there was a gleam in her eyes, as though the loss was an opportunity. And I knew she wasn't the only one who would benefit from his departure. He always said I was the reason for his faith, but deep down, few believed it. Unlike her, who always had the recognition and approval of everyone, I was just the invisible servant, the one who helped behind the scenes but was never seen. And when the will was read, the disclosure was like a punch to the stomach. I knew he loved me, but did he really see me? That day, as I looked at her satisfied face, something inside me began to awaken. But there's something they don't know, I thought. The love I built over the years was not something that could be measured in material goods. The connection we had was stronger than any inheritance. In truth, I was the one who sustained his faith in moments of doubt, who listened to his anxieties in the dead of night. He never knew that, even in his absence, my love would continue to guide him, even if it meant being ignored at the moment of truth. And it was in that silence that I found my strength. I learned that true love doesn't need recognition. It is not measured in goods or possessions. God knows what is in each person's heart. And I finally understood that the most precious inheritance I received was not in material goods, but in the certainty that my love for him was what really mattered. Sometimes the worst pain is not being overlooked, but realizing that the love you gave was never in vain. He gave me the strength to move forward, to continue loving, even when I am not seen. Now, I understand that his true legacy lives in me and in the memories I hold. It's worth reflecting on this. What do we really inherit in life? What remains when everything seems lost? The love you cultivate in silence may be the only inheritance that truly matters. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Each of us has a story of love and loss, and sometimes it's in silence that we find our true voice. However, as the memories accumulated, a persistent question echoed in my mind. How can people be so blind to the love that is right in front of them? I watched the faces around me, all of them sad, but there was one gaze that stood out. It was hers, the woman who always felt entitled to everything. She was surrounded by compassion, surrounded by those who saw her as the true daughter. While I continued to be nothing more than a distant echo, the pain of being invisible became an unbearable weight. The service that was supposed to be a tribute to the man I loved turned into a spectacle. The words of love and gratitude that were said to her felt like stabs to me. She deserves all of this, they said. But who truly deserved it? All I wanted was just a moment, a word of recognition, a sign that my love was not in vain. The routine that once brought me comfort was now a constant reminder of my loneliness. I went back to that house, a house full of memories, but now it seemed like a labyrinth of shadows. The smell of fresh coffee was still there, but the familiar warmth was gone instead. There was a void, an echo of what once was. The walls seemed to be watching me, silent witnesses of a love that had not been appreciated. It was then that I decided I needed a space to process this pain. I started writing. The words flowed like a river, carrying all the weight I bore. I wrote about every shared laugh, every tear shed, and every moment I was there, even when no one seemed to notice. And on each page, I found a piece of my strength. Writing became a form of therapy, a space where I could be seen, even if only by myself. However, with each passing day, her presence became more oppressive. She wore the inheritance like armor, surrounding herself with friends and admirers who exalted her. It was as if she wanted to erase any trace of my love. The people who once admired our relationship were now captivated by her image of the perfect daughter. And I, the invisible servant, continued to stay in the background. One night, amid a storm of emotions, I decided it was time to confront her. I needed her to know how much I had given, how much I had sacrificed in the name of a love that was not recognized. My determination grew every day, and when I finally found her alone, a whirlwind of feelings overwhelmed me. "You don't know anything about what it was like to love Father," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You only see what he left behind." But I saw what he felt. She looked at me with an expression of surprise, and at that moment, I realized that there was something deeper at play. It wasn't just a struggle for recognition, it was a battle for understanding. What I truly wanted wasn't just to be seen, but for her to understand the depth of the love we shared. The silence that followed was heavy, but there was a split second when I thought she might finally see. But, as I feared, her response was quick and cutting. "You were always there, but you weren't the only one. He had many who loved him." Those words were like a blow. I did not expect her to see my love as a competition. The truth is that, even amidst the pain, I knew that his love wasn't limited. But, at that moment, I wanted her to acknowledge that I was also part of that story. The following weeks were a tangle of confusing emotions. The service in his honor was approaching, and the pressure for everything to be perfect weighed on me like a dark cloud. While everyone was preparing, I felt like a spectator in my own life. The desire to leave that house and never look back grew stronger each day. But there was a part of me that insisted on staying, on honoring his memory, even if it meant suffering. And so on the day of the service, I dressed in the best clothes I had, but insecurity accompanied me. While everyone gathered, I remained on the sidelines, watching the scene unfold. The music played, and words of comfort were spoken, but what echoed most was the emptiness I felt. Her image was perfect, surrounded by everyone who adored her, and I, once again, was just a shadow. But at that moment, something inside me began to change. As tears ran down my face, I realized that I didn't need the validation that everyone was seeking. The love I had for him was real, it was strong, and it didn't need of applause. I was more than an invisible servant. I was a woman who loved intensely and carried his essence in every tear that fell. The service continued, but instead of sinking into sadness, something inside me began to rise. I was not just a shadow in his past. I had a voice, and that voice deserved to be heard. As the speeches of love and gratitude followed one another, I remembered moments when he looked into my eyes and told me I was special. Those small moments were precious, although they now seemed so distant. I wanted to scream. I wanted everyone to know that behind every act of his kindness was a woman who loved him unconditionally, who was there in moments when no one else was, and suddenly, I realized that I didn't need approval to validate my love. When the ceremony ended, people began to disperse, but I remained seated, lost in thoughts. It was time for me to find a way to turn this pain into something meaningful. The experience of being invisible, of being seen only as an echo, could not be in vain. The idea of writing a book began to take shape in my mind. A book about unrecognized love, about the silent struggle of people who are always in the shadows but who, in reality, sustain everything. Writing became my refuge. Every word I put on paper was a form of liberation. I started to tell our story, not just as a narrative of pain, but as a testament to true love. I wrote about the moments when he and I laughed together, how he taught me faith, and even the difficult days when I felt my love was not enough. What once seemed like a weakness to me now turned into a powerful strength. What I had experienced didn't need to be forgotten, it was an important part of who I am. As the pages filled up, I realized that my perspective was changing. Instead of seeing myself as a victim, I began to see the strength that was within me. The pain of being left out of the material inheritance was still there, but the pain could no longer define my life. I was beginning to understand that my inheritance was made up of memories, love, and resilience. One night, as I was writing, I received a message that made me stop. It was from her, the woman who always felt at the center of everything. She wanted to talk. I felt a tightening in my chest, a mixture of fear and curiosity. What could she want? But at the same time, I knew I needed to face this. Whatever it was, I could no longer live in the shadow. We met in a cafe, and the atmosphere was charged with tension. She seemed different, a little more vulnerable than I remembered. The look that was once disdainful was now full of questions. "I read what you're writing," she said, breaking the silence, and I didn't know you felt all that." Her words took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting an opening, a possibility for dialogue. "I've always been here, but you never realized how much I loved your father," I replied, feeling the emotion overflow. I didn't want to erase your pain, but I also can't let my love be forgotten. She looked at me, and for a brief moment, I saw a glimpse of understanding. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't want to be blind to what was in front of me. I always thought his love was enough for all of us, that there wasn't room for anyone else. In that moment, something changed. It wasn't just about inheritance or recognition. It was about love and acceptance. We were both his daughters in different ways, and each of us had our own story to tell. The conversation flowed, and I realized that, even though our experiences were different, a mutual respect was beginning to form. The pain that separated us now seemed to be a point of connection. As the days passed, our relationship began to transform. Not that everything was resolved, but there was an emerging understanding. She began to support me in my book project, and together, we decided that our stories, although different, could unite into one. It was an act of unity, a way to honor his memory in a manner that neither of us could do alone. As we wrote, I shared with her details I had never revealed before, and she did the same. I talked about what it was like to be invisible, and she spoke about the expectations and pressures she felt. It was a deep dialogue that allowed us to see beyond the wounds, beyond the competition. In that moment, I realized that the true inheritance I had received was not just in the memories, but in the ability to transform pain into something beautiful. The idea of publishing the book became a symbol of our new relationship. We didn't just want to tell our stories, but also inspire other people who, like us, live in the shadow of unrecognized loves. A part of this project became a real fuel for our journey. What started as a way to express our pains transformed into a shared mission. Each word we wrote brought us closer together, and, little by little, the relationship that was once marked by resentments became a space for healing. Our weekly meeting at the cafe became a ritual. We spent hours discussing ideas, reviewing chapters, and, most importantly, sharing our stories of love and loss. The connection forming between us was unexpected, as if the wounds that once separated us were now binding us in a deep bond. I realized that, although the pain of invisibility was still present, there was a new kind of light in our interactions. Once, while we were reviewing a chapter that talked about the times he supported me, she interrupted me. You have always been so strong, she said with a sincerity that surprised me. I never knew how much you suffered in silence. Her words were like a balm to my soul. It was as if, for the first time, someone was truly listening to my story, acknowledging the love I had given without expecting anything in return. Over time, I began to see her as a sister, someone who not only understood my pain but also carried it in some way. Our relationship deepened, and slowly, we set aside the barriers that separated us. The idea that his love could be enough for both of us started to gain meaning. He had loved us in different ways, but deep down, we were part of the same legacy. However, there were moments when insecurities resurfaced. On a particularly difficult day, as we were about to send the manuscript to the publisher, a troubling thought struck me. What if no one cares about what we have to say? I asked, my voice trembling. She looked at me, and instead of discouraging me, her response was clear and firm. What matters is that we care. Every word of ours is a testimony of what we've lived through. If even a single person identifies with it, it will have been worth it. The strength of her words made me reflect on the impact of our work. It wasn't just about telling our stories, but about creating a space where others could feel seen and heard. The love I had given in silence needed to be shared, and the idea that this could help someone feel less alone pushed me to move forward. As the book took shape, we decided it would also be important to include letters written by both of us. Letters that spoke about our experiences, what we had learned along the way, and how love can to manifest in different ways. I wrote about the pain of invisibility and how writing helped me find my voice. She, in turn, shared her own struggles with the pressure of being the perfect daughter, something that had always imprisoned her. These letters became an intimate space where we could open up to each other and, at the same time, to our readers. I realized that by sharing our vulnerabilities, we were creating a bridge between the past and the future, between pain and healing. The love that once seemed like a competition was now transforming into a celebration of everything it had taught us. As the publication day approached, anxiety began to blend with excitement. I remember one night when we were reviewing the final version of the manuscript in her apartment. The soft light of the lamp created a cozy atmosphere, but the pressure was high. What if people don't understand? I asked, looking at the computer screen. What if they think we're just trying to promote ourselves? She smiled and, with a confident look, replied, we're just being truthful. What matters is the authenticity of what we're sharing. If we can touch someone's heart, it will have been worth it. Her words resonated within me, and I realized that despite all the uncertainties, we were doing something meaningful. Finally, the day of the publication arrived. Anxiety turned into an overwhelming wave of emotions. We were about to share our love, our pain, and our stories with the world. The anticipation was palpable, and the launch event was a moment of pure magic. Friends, family, and even people we had never met came to support our work. As I looked out at the audience, I realized that even amid all the pain, there was a sense of accomplishment. I was no longer an invisible servant. I was a woman who had found her voice and was ready to share your legacy. Tears streamed down my face, but this time, they were tears of joy and gratitude. The love I had given in silence now resonated in every word I had written. After the first readings, a woman approached us, her eyes full of emotion. She came closer, her voice trembling as she said, your words touched me deeply. I am also a daughter who feels invisible. Your story reminded me that I am not alone. Tears streamed down her face, and I realized that, right there, amidst all that celebration, we were creating a safe space for other people who carried their own pain and silence. As she spoke, a feeling of comfort washed over me. It was as if, at that moment, all the insecurities I had felt over the years dissolved. I was not just a woman who had lived in the shadows, I was part of a movement of healing, a testament that love, even in its most silent form, has transformative power. The connection I felt with that woman and with so many others in the audience became tangible. I realized that through our stories, we could give a voice to those who feel invisible, just as I had so often felt. The event continued, and each reading seemed to amplify the energy in the air. The words we wrote were not just about loss, but about the ability to be reborn and assert oneself. Each chapter revealed the strength that comes from love that is not recognized but still endures. When I finished my reading, I looked at the audience and saw emotional faces, many of them reflecting the same pain I had felt. A man stood up and said, I too lost someone I loved. And I always felt like my love wasn't enough. Thank you for sharing this. His words resonated within me like an echo of what I myself had experienced. At that moment, I realized that the book wasn't just a story about me or about our relationship. It was a call to empathy, an invitation for all who have ever felt invisible. It was a chance to show that each love is unique and that each of us carries a story worth telling. And by telling it, we are not only freeing ourselves, but also offering a space for others to feel heard and seen. The event unfolded in a crescendo of emotions. People began to share their own stories, and what was once a space of pain turned into a circle of support and love. It was as if, by speaking, we were breaking down the barriers that separated us and uniting in a collective experience of vulnerability and strength. I never imagined that a simple book could create such a powerful space of connection. Each shared story was a reminder that pain can be a catalyst for healing, that through our vulnerability, we can find strength in one another. After the reading, the woman who had approached us came to me again. Would you mind if I shared my story with you? She asked. I nodded, eager to listen. And so, in that welcoming environment, she began to talk about her father, a man who always supported her but failed to recognize the depth of her love. She felt invisible, as if all her attempts to connect were in vain. Tears streamed down her face, and I couldn't help but feel the empathy that welled up inside me. As she spoke, I realized that each of us carried our own scars. What seemed like a competition for love and recognition was transforming into a space of mutual understanding. By sharing our stories, we were not only releasing the pain, but also creating a legacy of love that could be passed on. I was not just an invisible servant. I was a woman who had found a purpose in her pain and who could now help others do the same. As the night came to an end, the sense of community still hung in the air. I looked at my writing companion and saw that she was also moved. Look at what we managed to create, she murmured, and the pride in her voice was palpable. We had both transformed our experiences into something that not only healed us but also had the potential to touch the lives of many others. As people began to disperse, a young woman approached us. I read the book, and I can't express how much it meant to me. I also feel invisible in my family. Your words gave me the courage to talk about it." The young woman was visibly moved, and her expression reflected a mixture of gratitude and hope. My companion and I exchanged knowing looks. This was what we wanted, to create a space where everyone's voices were heard and where pain could be transformed into strength. At that moment, I realized that my journey had not been in vain. The love I had given, even in silence, now reverberated in so many lives. I was no longer a shadow, I was part of a light that illuminated the path for others. Through our stories, we were building a legacy that would transcend pain, and through our stories, we were building a legacy that would transcend pain and loneliness. Every word we wrote had the potential to reach someone who, like us, felt invisible, and as I looked at the people around me, I realized that the pain we carried was not just ours. It was a collective pain, a shared experience that united us. Over time, the book project transformed into something bigger than I could have ever imagined. We began organizing gatherings where other people could share their stories and find a safe space to express themselves. Each meeting was a reminder that vulnerability is a strength, and that together, we could create a support network that illuminated even the darkest corners of pain. I remember one particular night when an older woman stood up to speak. She had tears in her eyes and an expression of fragility, but her voice was firm as she began to share her story. "I was always the perfect daughter," she said, but behind that facade, there was an emptiness no one could see. As she spoke, I realized that her struggle was the same as mine. And although our contexts were different, the essence of the pain was the same. What touched me the most was when she finished her speech saying, "I don't want to be invisible anymore. I want to be seen, even if it means facing the pain." The room was silent, and in that moment, we all realized that we were not alone. It was as if the connection being formed in those moments was an invisible thread, weaving our stories into a tapestry of love and overcoming. With each meeting, more people joined us, and the idea that pain could be transformed into art and voice solidified more and more. Over time, I realized that the book had become a symbol of resistance, not just against the pain of invisibility, but also against the idea that true love needs recognition. By gathering together, we were creating a space where love could flourish in its purest form, without the need for external validation, and that brought me a peace I didn't know could exist. As I continued writing and organizing the meetings, my relationship with the woman I initially saw as a rival continued to deepen. She became an ally, and together, we were creating something beautiful. Sometimes, there were still moments of insecurity, of doubt, but now we could talk about it. "You know," she once told me, "I used to think that my father's love was limited. But now I realize that he loved all of us in different ways, and that doesn't diminish what I feel." These conversations became a foundation for our friendship. What was once competition was now turning into collaboration. The love he gave us not only united us but also taught us to be more generous and open towards each other. By recognizing the pain we shared, we began to find the strength to support each other in our vulnerabilities. The process of writing the book became more than a task, it became a sacred ritual. We spent hours discussing each chapter, reviewing every detail, but more importantly, sharing our reflections on what each word meant to us. Sometimes, a sentence made us cry, and at other times, it made us laugh. It was a space where love and pain coexisted, where the beauty of memories was intertwined with the sadness of loss. In that context, we decided to include stories from other people who participated in our meetings. We wanted the book to be a collection of voices, an anthology of experiences that reflected the diversity of love and pain. Each contribution was a piece of the puzzle, and with each new story we received, the tapestry we were weaving became richer and more complex. The idea of collecting these stories not only expanded our project but also connected us even more to the community. We went beyond what we imagined, creating a space where voices that were once silenced could finally to be heard. This gave us a renewed purpose. We knew we were doing something important, something that could truly impact people's lives. Amid all this movement, I began to realize that my own heart was healing. The pain of invisibility that I had carried for so long was dissipating, and in its place, a new form of love was blossoming, a love that did not need validation but was genuine and true. I was learning to see myself, to recognize myself as someone who had contributed something significant, and that was liberating. As the publication day approached, anxiety mingled with anticipation. What had once been an individual project was now a collective celebration. The launch event became an opportunity to unite all those voices that had intertwined along the way. Each of us had a part to play, and the anticipation of seeing all those stories come to life in one space was overwhelming. The launch event promised to be more than just a presentation. It would be a moment of celebration, recognition, and, above all, collective healing. Every detail was being carefully planned. From the decoration to the readings we would do, the sense of community that had formed over the months was palpable, and I knew that all those previously silenced voices would now come together in a call for visibility. On the eve of the launch, as we reviewed the final details, a whirlwind of emotions took over me. I remembered all the times I had felt invisible, every tear shed in silence for an unrecognized love. But now, looking at the woman who had become a friend and ally, I realized I was no longer alone. What was once a burden had transformed into a legacy we shared, and that gave me a new perspective on everything I had experienced. On the morning of the event, the space was filled with flowers, soft lights, and chairs arranged in a semicircle, creating a warm atmosphere. People started to arrive, and the energy in the air was electrifying. I saw familiar and unfamiliar faces, but everyone there was connected by an invisible thread. Each person's pain seemed to echo, and I knew that we were about to enter a space of deep vulnerability and empathy. When we finally began the event, my voice trembled with emotion. I looked at the audience and realized it was not just a group of strangers but a community yearning to be heard. The first reading was from one of the most emotional chapters of the book, where I described moments of love and loss that many in the room could relate to. As I spoke, I felt the emotions pulsating, and the connection with the audience became more intense. Each tear that rolled down my face seemed to be an echo of all the stories that were there, alive and pulsing. After the reading, a respectful silence took over the space, and then a woman stood up. With a choked voice, she began to share her own story, and what seemed to be an intimate moment quickly turned into an open dialogue. Other people started to rise, one by one, sharing their experiences of unrecognized love, invisibility, and loneliness. What had started as a launch event turned into a true support circle, where each person found the courage to open up. As I listened to those stories, I realized that each account, each tear, and each smile was a testament to the power we have to connect through pain. It was not just about what had happened in our lives, but about how we could transform that pain into something beautiful together. It was as if, by sharing, we were weaving a new tapestry, one that not only represented sadness but also the resilience and strength that comes from love. With each new story shared, the environment became more welcoming. I saw faces light up with acceptance, tears turning into smiles, and hugs being exchanged between strangers who, until that moment, were just faces in the crowd. The connection being formed was undeniable. We were all there to remember that. Even in our greatest pains, love is a powerful force that can unite us. When it was time for my writing partner to do her reading, the room was in absolute silence. She began to talk about her own struggles, about the weight she felt as the perfect daughter and how the pressure of expectation made her invisible in a different way. I watched her, admiring her courage, and realized that even though our stories were distinct, there was a common thread that united us. We were both daughters of a love that was not always recognized but was still deep and true. After her reading, a man stood up and shared his own pain, talking about the feeling of not being enough in his family. His words resonated with me. I felt that everyone there, in some way, had experienced the feeling of being invisible. And, at that moment, I realized that the pain we had carried was not just ours. It was a collective pain, a silent cry that was finally being heard. The event continued, and the stories intertwined, forming a mosaic of experiences that together created a new narrative about love and acceptance. The room was full of laughter and tears, but above all, there was a deep sense of belonging. I saw people hugging, smiling, and connecting in ways they never imagined before. What began as a quest for recognition turned into a celebration of the love we all carried within us. When the event came to an end, I looked around and saw that the space, which once seemed like a labyrinth of pain, what began as a quest for recognition turned into a celebration of the love we all carried within. I looked around and saw that the space, which once seemed like a labyrinth of pain, now pulsed with the energy of new possibilities. The stories shared were not just tales of sadness, but seeds of hope that sprouted amidst vulnerability. Each of us had found a piece of healing by opening up, and I knew this was only the beginning. As people began to disperse, a young woman approached me, her eyes shining with emotion. "You have no idea how much your words meant to me," she said, her voice trembling. "I always thought I was the only one who felt this way, but now I know I'm not alone." Her words were like a balm for my soul. This was exactly what I wished for, that others could feel their loves and pains were valid, that their stories mattered. That connection made me reflect on the importance of continuing to create these spaces. There was something powerful about sharing our experiences, something that transcends individual pain and transforms into a supportive community. Each time someone stood up to tell their story, it was as if a new layer of understanding formed between us. We were breaking the chains of invisibility, and the light that emerged was a testimony to the love that endured. As the days went by, I realized that the impact of that event still reverberated. I began to receive messages from people who couldn't attend but had heard about what happened. They shared their own experiences, their silent struggles, and the desire to find a space where they could be heard. This left me with a sense of urgency. We needed to do more. We needed to carry this conversation forward, expand the reach of our stories, and ensure that no one ever felt invisible again. That's how the idea to create a support group came about. A space where we could gather regularly, where each person could share their stories, their joys, and their pains. A place where love didn't need to be recognized, but could be acknowledged in its purest form. The meetings became a refuge, a safe space where vulnerability was welcomed and celebrated. The first meeting was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon. Anxiety was present, but so was a vibrant sense of anticipation. I knew that each of us carried our own stories of love and loss, but still, it was hard to imagine how people would react. With a racing heart, I prepared the space, ranged chairs in a circle, and placed a few lit candles in the center. I wanted the environment to be welcoming, an invitation for everyone to feel at ease. When people started to arrive, a mixture of nervousness and joy overcame me. Each face that walked in seemed to bring with it a unique baggage of experiences and feelings. As we looked into each other's eyes, I realized there was an instant connection. The pain and struggles of each person were recognized without words, and at that moment, empathy began to weave an invisible bond between us. As the meeting began, each person had the opportunity to introduce themselves and share their story if they wished. The words started to flow, and soon the circle was filled with accounts of unrecognized love, of pain and loneliness, but also of hope and resilience. It was a space of liberation, where silence was finally broken, and the love that had been stifled began to emerge. A woman, with tears in her eyes, told how she had always felt in the shadow of her perfect sister. Her struggle to feel seen and loved resonated deeply with me. I listened to her intently, feeling the pain she carried, as at the end of his speech, a respectful silence took over the group. And I knew that everyone there was reflecting on their own experiences. It was impressive how, amidst the pain, there was mutual recognition that united our stories. As the conversation flowed, I realized that we were a mosaic of emotions, each bringing a piece of our own truth. The stories intertwined, and with each new narrative, the sense of belonging grew stronger. We were not just individuals struggling against invisibility. We were a community united around love and acceptance. In that meeting, something magical happened. People began to support each other in ways I could never have imagined. One woman offered her shoulder to the one who felt invisible, while another shared a word of encouragement. What started as a space for storytelling turned into a circle of support, where each person became a pillar for the other. After a few weeks of meetings, the idea of creating a community event began to gain momentum. I wanted more people to have access to this welcoming space, and that we could expand our message of love and acceptance. The proposal was to create an event centered on love and vulnerability. A day when we could gather in a larger space, inviting people from all parts to join us and share their stories. The idea of a community event was ambitious, but the passion I felt for this cause drove me forward. I started planning, looking for a venue that could accommodate everyone who wanted to participate. A community center could be the ideal space. where people would feel comfortable opening up and sharing their experiences. With the help of some people I met at the meetings, we began to organize everything. The energy was contagious. Each one contributed their ideas, and the excitement grew with each conversation. While we worked on the details, we emphasized the importance of making the event accessible to everyone. I wanted no one to feel excluded, that everyone could find a temporary home, even if just for a few hours. We began promoting the date, creating posters and social media posts, inviting friends, family, and even people who had never participated before. What was once a small support group was transforming into a vibrant community. During the week of the event, anxiety mixed with excitement. The day finally arrived, and upon entering the community center, I was greeted by a wave of warmth and welcome. The tables were decorated with flowers, and an atmosphere of hope filled the air. I saw familiar faces and many new ones, and the sense of belonging was palpable. The space was full of people who, regardless of their stories, were united by a common goal. Finding visibility and acceptance, as the event began, I gave a brief but heartfelt speech. I spoke about the importance of being together, of creating a space where vulnerability was not seen as weakness, but as a powerful force that connected us. With each word, I saw empathy growing among those present. And, just like in our previous meetings, the stories began to flow, one after another, and the atmosphere filled with raw and authentic emotions. A woman stood up, her voice hesitant, and began to tell her story. She spoke about the pain of being the daughter who was never seen. And the room fell silent, absorbing every word. As she spoke, tears began to stream down the faces of other people. It was a wave of recognition, an echo of experiences that resonated in each of us. And at that moment, I realized we were not just listening, but also healing together. The stories intertwined, and the connection between us grew stronger by the minute. I felt that we were creating something much larger than I could have imagined. We were a group united by pain, but also by hope. Amidst laughter and tears, we began to see the beauty of our vulnerabilities, and the idea that pain could be transformed into love and acceptance solidified before our eyes. As the day progressed, more people stood up, and the room seemed to pulse with a renewing energy. I was amazed by each person's ability to open up and connect, and the sense of community that was forming was indescribable. The pain that once seemed isolated now became a bond that united us, and I knew that, together, we could create a legacy that transcended our individual experiences. Before you leave, due to things now, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive the next messages. And share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. To continue, watch the next video. It's already in the cards and also in the description.